We're back. We're happy to be able to call on our friend Dr. Phil, the host of his own show, New York Times best-selling author, and a member of the fraternity that is from Texas. In fact, do you know Fort Hood?
I do. I've been there and spent time working with some of the widows of soldiers and widows and widowers of soldiers that were lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I've spent time on Fort Hood, and it's a
huge base, right?
339 acres. It's a city within itself down there, and on any given day can have 30, 40,000 people on the base. It truly is a city within a city, and good folks. And as the general said, it's their home. I mean, this isn't a war zone; it's their home.
I asked the FBI the FBI agent if he had ever heard of a psychiatrist committing mayhem. He never had. Have you?
Well, no, I have not. But, Larry, we're dealing with a very different kind of war here. And, you know, this is a man that, from what I understand, was doing all kinds of drug and rehabilitation counseling with soldiers and returning soldiers. And we know that there is a tremendous degree of stress with this war. And I think the military will tell you that it's a new animal and nobody knows exactly what to do with it. And I don't know. Everything is speculation at this point. But he was apparently scheduled for deployment, did not want to go. I think he had maybe seen the problems that some of these soldiers were experiencing when they come back to try to reintegrate into society, and maybe the fear got him and he just snapped. You can't make sense out of nonsense. And you have to stop and think about this, Larry. How far out of touch with reality and reason do you have to go to actually pick up a weapon and kill your friends, kill your fellow soldiers, your fellow warriors? This is a major mental event. This guy was not just having a bad day. This is a serious
Joining
problem.
us in New York is Tom Kenneth, a commissioned officer with the Army National Guard's Judge Advocate Generals Group. He's a veteran of the war in Iraq and a criminal defense attorney. And in Washington, our old friend Shoshana Johnson, former POW, U.S. Army specialist, now serves on an advisory panel for the Veterans Administration. Dr. Phil is with us here in the studios in Los Angeles. Tom, what do you make of this?
Look, Larry, you know, with all due respect to Dr. Phil, you know, having been through the war in Iraq and having seen what these soldiers go through, you know, with respect to this incident, I need to take a giant step back from all the psychobabble I've been hearing for the last few hours. I mean, let's take a look at this, the facts of this situation. This is not some lower enlisted soldier. This is a major. He's a high-ranking field-grade officer. That means that he outranks approximately 95% of the military. He has he's a medical doctor. He's an MD. That means that he occupies a position of prestige, not only within the military, but also within society at large. He is paid well for the job he does. You know, this looks a lot less like PTSD and a lot more like the Hassan Akbar case in 2003, where another soldier who has an Islamic last name throws grenades randomly into tents occupied by his fellow officers and by his fellow soldiers for no other reason but to commit acts of terror and to instill fear on a military installation and to bring attention to himself.
Hello?
But Tom, are you doing, Tom, by mentioning Islamic last name, are you doing speculating of your own?
I am speculating, and that's true. We have very limited information right now, but we're all speculating. And what I'm saying is my speculation seems to fit a lot more in with the reality of this case.
No. No, it doesn't.
Than anyone else's.
Doesn't.
Why do you say that?
Shoshana, hold on.
I don't think you can say that.
Let Shoshana get a word.
Terrible innuendo here.
Shoshana,
Look,
what do you want to say?
as someone who suffers from PTSD, I know exactly what I say to my psychiatrist. And if he's sitting back and hearing this day in and day out, the fear may get to him. The fact of the matter that he's a major or the fact that he's a doctor doesn't excuse that he is a human being and he feels. You're saying because he's a major in the Army that he's not going to feel the way a private does.
I'm saying it makes it a lot less likely that
Why does it make it less
because,
likely?
Because you don't know that he's even been deployed. So he
hasn't been deployed.
Right. So let's forget PTSD then, because he's not been in a combat zone yet.
Maybe the fact that is that you're a JAG officer and you have no idea what it's like to be in combat.
I spent a year in Iraq, ma'am. Have you ever been to Iraq?
I'm a POW.
Okay, well, I've been in Iraq as well, and I respect that.
Officer, and you stayed
that's
in the
right.
green zone.
And I carried, and I was, ma'am, I was never in the green zone. I was in a forward operating base.
You both one at a time. One at a time. You're both talking at the same time.
And the fact, this is hard to deal with every day. I'm not excusing his behavior one bit. He needs to pay for what he did to those soldiers. But for you to say that because of his education, because he was an officer, that he didn't feel the way other soldiers feels is ridiculous.
I never said what, I don't know what he felt.
Dr. Phil, get a word in. Hold it, Tom. All right, Tom. But you did mention Islamic last name, which I don't know.
Well, I think that is irresponsible to say. I just don't think that we know enough about that. All I'm saying is you have to consider this is not a well act. This is not something a rational person goes and does. And you can call it psychobabble, you can call it whatever you want, but well people don't pick up guns and go shoot their friends and their fellow soldiers. That just doesn't make sense. I don't know what the origin is, but that is a sick individual that would do that with fellow warriors.
Well, Tom, this is ridiculous. Tom, you're not saying this isn't a sick person, are you?
Of course it's a sick person. People who commit terrorist acts are sick people. I mean, no one's arguing that this is a rational act. And if he was motivated by ideology, and hypothetically, we don't know it, but if that ideology was Islamic fundamentalism, you know, that doesn't make it any more rational. The argument isn't that, you know, he shouldn't be held accountable. The argument isn't that he's not mentally, you know, does not have some serious mental issues. But we're all seem to be jumping to the conclusion that, well, this must be, you know, PTSD or must be his involvement in the military that led him off the deep end. Look, a lot of people go to Iraq and Afghanistan, they come back, a lot of them have issues and a lot of them don't. If we're going to speculate as to motives, then speculating that it might be an ideological motive is just as, you know, proper as speculating that it might be PTSD or some other trauma.
And insinuating something
he's saying
like that
it may not
is
be
dangerous.
just of course it's I think he's saying, of course, it's a sick act, but it could be a terrorist sick act as well, right?
It certainly could, but you don't you don't take the guy's last name and impugn the Islamic nation. Are you kidding me?
That's ridiculous.
What are you talking about? That is irresponsible, and it is ridiculous to say.
And
we had a break, and we'll come right back. Don't go away.
Dangerous.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. Don't go away.